I will admit Stephen now.
Okay, very good. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the meeting. And I think before we get started, Brandon, is there a disclaimer that you'd like to read for this evening's meeting?
Yes, I will read it in just a moment. I'm having trouble admitting Mr. Watts.
Okay.
Give me just a moment, please. Strange. Okay. There he is. Okay, great. We have everybody from the waiting room now in the meeting, so we can go ahead and get started. So I want to provide a few reminders to ensure that the COVID-19 provisions of the Kansas Open Meeting Act are met. Board members and other meeting participants must state their names and titles each time they speak. Various members of city staff are present via Zoom and in person in attendance. We must also state our names and titles each time we speak. All motions will need to be stated clearly. After a motion is made and seconded, the chair will call on board members individually to provide their vote. The chair will announce whether or not the motion carried, as well as a count of the vote. And the agenda for the meeting provided instructions for how to submit public comment and how it would be handled. And for purposes of the meeting and sort of our new procedures, which I'm not sure if the board is entirely aware of, we are encouraging written comment in advance, just like we have done, but I will also be scanning the Zoom meeting to look for anybody who raises their hand to speak in public comment. So when we take public comment on an agenda item, Tanya, if you would, please check with me to make sure that anybody who wishes to speak has the opportunity to do so. And then I will also notify you if anybody attends here in person and wishes to speak on an item. At the moment, we do not have anybody in attendance in the commission room. Finally, I want to remind everyone to please mute themselves when they're not speaking. Thank you.
Okay, Brandon, thank you. And once again, good evening, everyone, and welcome, Steve. We are going to go ahead and move to agenda item A, which is to approve the minutes. And we have 3 sets of minutes to approve. The first set would be from September 30th, 2020.
Sanjay Mishra, board member. I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, there's a motion by Sanjay to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Stephanie Littleton, board member. I second the motion.
This is Tanya, chairperson. Stephanie has seconded the motion from Sanjay. Any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and vote. Yay for acceptance and nay for rejection. All those in favor then signify with yay or nay. Tanya, yay. Stephanie?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Sanjay?
Yes.
Bill?
Board member Graybill, yay.
Marie?
Board member Marie Taylor, yay.
Jennifer?
Board member Jenny Robinson, yay.
Okay. That motion has been approved by 7 yeas. We'll move again to the next set of minutes. That would be for October 8th, 2020. Is there a motion?
Board Member Jane Gibson, I move to approve the minutes for October 8th.
There's a motion by Jane to approve the minutes. And Jenny,
Board Member Jenny Robinson, I second that motion.
it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? For approval then, all those in favor with the yay, all opposed, nay. Tanya, yay. Stephanie,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Sanjay,
Sanjay, yes.
Bill,
Board Member Graybill, I was not present, therefore abstain.
Marie,
Board Member Marie Taylor, yay.
and Jennifer.
Board Member Jenny Robinson, yay.
Okay. The yays have it. The motion carried with 6 yays and 1 abstention. Okay, let's move ahead to the next set of minutes from October 21st, 2020.
Board Member Jane Gibson, I move to approve the minutes for October 21st.
Okay. The motion's been made by Jane Gibson to approve. Stephanie,
Board Member Stephanie Littleton, I approve of the same. I move for the same.
second. Okay,
Yeah.
it's been moved and seconded by Stephanie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor with yay, all those opposed, nay, and A if you abstain. Tanya, yay. Stephanie,
Yes.
Jane,
Board Member Graybill, I was not present and therefore abstain.
Marie,
Marie Taylor, Board Member, yay.
Jennifer.
Board Member Jenny Robinson, yay.
Okay, the motion carried. We've got 6 yays and 1 abstention. Motion passes. Okay, we'll move forward then to Part B, the public comment. And I do believe we have someone present for public comment this evening. Stephanie, would you want to take this section and go ahead and read the public comments?
Absolutely. Board Member
Thank you.
Littleton, I'll do so. Just going to add a few additional points for public speaking. The public is allowed to speak to any items or issues except those scheduled for discussion on the agenda tonight. Individuals wishing to provide live public comment must register as outlined on the top of the agenda, and public comment is limited to 3 minutes. I believe it's Mr. Watts is available. That's correct. Okay, he's going to speak. So Mr. Watts, if you would, go ahead, please.
Hi, hopefully this is working. It's about the dark environment. For you all, it's fine for me. The process has become pretty banal in the final analysis, given that nothing's going to happen until June or July anyway. What you all are doing in terms of the Police Review Board still continues to have merit and hope. I decided tonight to come on because I got an email just prior to the meeting indicating that an individual in the police department, a police administrator, had deleted an email without reading it. And this is pretty typical, at least for me. Okay, you can say, well, Watts sends a lot of email. Big deal. I've been trying to engage these people. Note how I say these people. It's a shame that it has to go to that. With the same articles I have been sending you members of the board, which are not left or right wing analyses of anything. These are just what is going on in the police industry. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to engage about it. They don't want to engage people who are informed about it, what do they want to do? Meanwhile, you have a police consultant, an operation. Oh man, did you guys did you see the meeting that went on with the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council and all this? I mean, in the final analysis, did anybody call up any of the other places and said, hey, how did these guys work out for you? This is all a joke. I hope that what you guys do has some merit. And that's pretty much all I have to say right now. Oh, I will add, Dr. Salvini, I don't appreciate that you did not respond to my email asking you politely, what was your perspective with these consultants? I see no merit whatsoever in having the police review the police. Isn't that why the board is being created? Because there's no... Anyway, that's just what time it is out here in public land. Have a good night. Aloha.
Thank you very much, Mr. Watts. Appreciate it. All right. With that, we'll go forward on the agenda. And looks like the next thing is the discussion of the 2021 meeting dates. Tanya? Yep, you're muted. You're muted, Tanya.
Sure, yes, it is. The meeting poll is there and the calendar. So I think we need to talk about what's best for the group going forward to meet starting in January. It looks like Thursdays are good. Wednesdays would work for me too. I didn't put it on there, but I have a standing Wednesday night meeting, but I can miss occasionally, not a problem.
Marie Taylor, board member. It looked like Wednesday was no longer available because of a conflict with another board. Is that correct, Brandon?
Assistant City Manager Brandon McGuire, there is a Sustainability Advisory Board meeting
On the second Wednesday night, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm trying. These are
Sister Cities and Cultural Arts is that night as well.
Thank you, Kurt. Sorry, these are between different screens, so if you'll bear with me.
Oh,
So on the, sorry, again, Assistant City Manager Brandon McGuire, on the first Wednesday meeting that Bobby discussed with the board, there has been, since that poll was sent out, there has been a Aviation Advisory Board meeting scheduled, and that's a quarterly meeting on the first Wednesdays. Those meetings begin at 6 p.m. So it is very likely that at least once a quarter that will be a conflicting meeting.
Bill?
This is board member Graybill. Does anybody have a problem with Thursdays? No.
Board member Stephanie Littleton. It was originally my issue with it, Bill, for football. But in retrospect, I do realize football is going to be over in the next, 6 to 8 weeks or so. So that really is, you got to talk about priorities, right? But I'm actually going to back off on that. And I think, either Thursday, 2nd or 4th, either one. It looks like everybody else is readily available. So I'm good. Go ahead, Bill.
How about this for an idea? Why don't we just agree on Thursdays and forget the chatter about Wednesdays?
agreed.
Move on.
Okay, that sounds good. So would it be 2nd or 4th Thursday in terms of anyone's preference?
As board member Stephanie Littleton, I'd shoot for the 2nd Thursday.
I see some peace signs. I see some agreements. I see some nodding, some thumbs up. Everyone good with that? Jane? Okay. All right, Marie, that works. Okay. I see the second Thursday working. Is that good? Do we want to make a motion to that end, please?
Board Member Stephanie Littleton, I make a motion that we select the second Thursday for our meeting times going forward, or meeting days.
Okay, is there a second?
Second. This is board member.
Sanjay seconded. Stephanie made the motion to second Thursdays. Sanjay seconded. All those in favor with yay, opposed, nay. Tanya, yay. Stephanie?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Sanjay?
Yes.
Bill?
Board member Graybill, yay.
Marie?
Board Member Murray Taylor, yay.
And Jenny?
Board Member Jenny Robinson, yay.
Okay. The motion passes with 7 votes. Very good. Thank you all. Any questions, remarks, comments?
Can I,
Sanjay?
Sanjay Mishra, board member. So this, we agree to the second Thursday till June? Till
July, I think. Would that be right,
Okay.
Brandon?
just want to clarify.
Assistant City Manager Brandon McGuire. So was the question about how many meetings there are? Or how far out we will schedule those meetings?
Yes.
Assistant City Manager Brandon McGuire, we could schedule them out for the entire calendar year if you would like, or we could just schedule for the first half of the year if that's what you wish, and then reassess the meeting schedule at that point. We'll follow the direction of the board.
Why don't we go ahead and schedule for the year so we can have a placeholder on that date, if that's agreeable with everyone? A meeting holder, if you will. Okay. All right. Why don't we do it for the whole year?
Assistant City Manager Brandon McGuire, that sounds good. We will schedule it out for the whole year on the second Thursday. Thank you. One final question though, is 7 o'clock still the preferable start time?
This is Chairperson Salvini. I see heads nodding yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the next agenda item then is going ahead and working through that last draft. This is the clean draft of the ordinance. And I want to take some time to thank everyone who's really contributed to getting it to this point, and really want to recognize from the last meeting, certainly all the information that Randy Larkin took in and took to, I'm sure, both you and Tony Wheeler working on this with some other folks as well. So I want to recognize and thank you all on that effort. So as we're looking at this tonight, it is my hope, or hopefully a fair assumption, that we all took a look at this ordinance, looked at some of our previous notes that really got us to that point. And perhaps as we're moving through it, and hopefully we can move through it quickly tonight, let's visit some of the questions, concerns, remarks, or possible edits that you have at this point. And so I was wondering if perhaps, Randy, would you mind taking the lead and walking us through the kind of the changes then that were most significant in moving to this draft?
Yes, this is Randy Larkin, Deputy City Attorney. What we did here was I took all the notes and comments and questions that we received at the last meeting, put that into the ordinance as requested to the best as I understood it, and then went through and we polished it up a little bit, some of the language, tried to make it a little more consistent from place to place, a little more consistent with the rest of the city code. And we went from there. So other than that, that's pretty much all that we did with this, and then put it in final form.
All right, very good then. Thank you. Well, let's go ahead and start walking through it real quickly. I've got a few things, a few questions here and there. And so let's just go ahead and go through, starting with 2501. Were there any questions or concerns in section 1, section 2? Okay, if not, we can certainly come back, but let's go ahead and move forward to 2501, 2502. Jane Gibson.
Jane, you're muted.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted. Am I unmuted? I am, okay. This is a stylistic matter under B, 2502B. The chief definition is extended to include the designees of the chief, but then throughout the ordinance specifies the chief of police or designee. So the simpler way to do this would be just to say that the chief means chief of police, since the rest of the ordinance spells it out as we go. It's not a big deal. It's just for simplicity and consistency.
This is Marie Taylor, board member. Could you explain a little bit more detail? I didn't catch it. What
The definition of chief here is extended to include the designee of the chief. That's not a problem, except that throughout the rest of the ordinance, every time that appears, they say the chief or the chief's designee. So we don't need to include the definition here and then to spell it out elsewhere. We can either change it elsewhere to chief because that includes the designee, or we can just make the chief mean chief of police here and then leave the rest of it alone, which seems the simpler solution.
Marie Taylor, I agree with that. Yeah, because they've added more definitions since the last time we saw that.
Yeah, it just doesn't need this addition.
I agree.
I think we just strike that phrase and we'll just leave it at shall mean the chief of police or any person fulfilling the role of the chief of police. I think that takes care of that.
Well, if you add that second part, Randy, you've just reproduced what you have here, but with a different phrase.
Well, there may be somebody who's fulfilling the role because we may have an interim person serving as the chief of police that may not be there, may not be the designee, but so I'll strike out any designee of the chief.
Yeah, the problem, it's not a problem. It's just that throughout the rest of the ordinance, whenever that appears, you specify chief of police or the chief of police's designee. So you don't need to define it as a designee and then spell it out as a designee later.
No, right. We'll strike out any designee of the chief of police, but it'll read shall mean the chief of police or any person fulfilling the role of the chief of police. For example, right now we have an interim chief. So that would cover that person.
All right, I see your point. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Bill, this is Chairperson Salvini. Bill, Chairperson Graybill.
This is Board Member Graybill. Are we doing that for redundancy's sake? Is that the point?
That was my point.
Okay.
Okay, Marie Taylor, board member, just to make sure I understand. For the definition section, it'll say, will mean the chief of police or any person fulfilling the role of chief of police. But then throughout the ordinance, it'll still say chief or designee, because that a designee would be someone different than the chief or
Fulfilling the role.
fulfilling the role. Okay, I got it.
Okay. Anything else in 2502? 2501, Jane?
Yes, sorry. I have little things here. And I think we had a conversation about 2502E, the definition of complaint, and I can't remember why it is that we took out violation of the law. Why is that excluded from the definition of the complaint? I think, Bill, you were part of that conversation, and you had originally something in there about the statute, and I think Tony Wheeler and Randy both talked us out of having any sort of statutory reference there. And I'm sorry that I can't remember why that is, but it just seems like a violation of the law ought to be a part of that.
This is Randy Larkin, Deputy City Attorney, because basically what it is we don't have any authority over state law or federal law. So we have it in there, regulation or violation. It's city ordinances, city rules, city regulations, and violations of department policy, and the state statute under racial and other bias-based policing, which you do have authority to review on. So those are all specifically spelled out. So we didn't need to catch all any other law.
But aren't we just defining what a complaint is here, Randy?
Correct. So there would be some type of complaint as to whether, if proved to be true, would be a violation of any of these things. Otherwise, it's not a complaint. It's just some other thing.
So if they complain that something is a violation of the law, it's not a complaint.
No, it depends. I mean, this is how it was drafted originally. The only thing that we really did was spelled out the bias-based police and then removed the catch-all phrase that said other law. And there was a city ordinance and city law. So we just think this is the same as, I didn't make any changes to this from the last time that we revisited this or reviewed it.
No, I'm aware of that. I just can't follow the logic of it. Maybe Bill and Marie can help me out there.
As Marie Taylor, board member, I also don't understand why we couldn't add in the definition for complaint that if true, it would be a violation of the law. We're not adjudicating anything. We're just saying that if it was true, it would be a violation of the law. Hence, that's why we see it as a complaint. I don't know why we couldn't add it in that.
The other situation is if it is a violation of law and someone's charged, we don't want the board making a decision regarding a violation of law that some other court, some other jurisdiction is going to be handling the case, because it may have some type of impact upon a criminal investigation or a criminal trial or some other type of deal. We don't want to get involved in a situation where you're making a decision, perhaps the jury's making a decision over here, and you're going to be either in conflict or together, and it may impact those types of trials and those types of other hearings, and that's why we left that out specifically.
Marie Taylor, board member, I don't think that in the definition of the complaint, that alone would give us that kind of authority. I think it's just defining that if it were true, it would be a violation. It's not making a fact, it's not fact finding that in the definition. So,
but the definition is what a complaint is, and that's what you hear throughout. So when you hear the complaint, then that's what a complaint is. So it will exclude certain things, but that's what the complaint is defined as. And that's what you would be hearing or reviewing, citizen member complaints that are brought either to your board or to the police department.
So Marie Taylor, board member, are you saying that then any complaint would exclude any action that, if were true, would be a violation of law, and then that is acting as a restriction on what we would review in terms of?
What I'm saying is you have jurisdiction over city things. We can't grant you jurisdiction over federal law, whether it's a constitutional violation or a violation of state law other than racial or bias-based policing. There may be some overlap. So say, for example, there's a complaint about excessive force. You won't be reviewing it to determine whether it was a violation of the 14th Amendment or the 14th Amendment. You'll be reviewing it to determine whether it was a violation of city policy or city ordinance or city regulations or the state bias and based policing. That's basically the purview in your jurisdiction as to what a complaint is that sets it up for the rest of the ordinance.
Okay, Marie Taylor, another follow-up question. So let's say the police department gets a complaint. And this is like right now, even if we don't change this ordinance, and they have a complaint that turns out, if it was true, it would be a violation of law. Would that be a complaint that would never have even gotten to the board through the appeal process?
If it's not a violation of city ordinance, city regulation, or a department policy, or the racial or bias-based policing, it would not come to you. It would not be a complaint that you would hear.
Board member Jane Gibson. Randy, where would that go?
it would be resolved by an OPA or whatever it is. And it just would be either someone would file a lawsuit out of it. It might be a notice of claim that's filed with the city. But I don't see how, if it's a violation, if it's going to be a constitutional law, it could very well be a complaint. But anyway, this is basically sets up the jurisdiction or the limitation as to what it is that you're going to hear and not hear. And you're going to hear complaints that allege violations of city rules, regulations, ordinances, and the Kansas State bias-based policing, because that's the only jurisdiction that we can give you over. So if there is a complaint or somebody makes an allegation that doesn't fit with any of those definitions, it's not a complaint that would come to you.
Okay, this is Chair Salvini. I saw Bill's hand up and then Sanjay.
Are you recognizing me, Chairman?
I did, Bill. Your hand was up first, and then Sanjay. Yes.
All right, this is a question for Randy. Randy, you keep saying, I'm not sure I'm clear on this process. I keep hearing you say that the complaint has to allege a violation of city ordinance, rule, regulation, or department policy. As I read it, that I'm not reading it that way. The way I'm reading it is a person makes a complaint alleging facts, and that it is up to this board to determine whether those facts, when proven or if proven, would violate a city ordinance, rule, regulation, or department policy. Am I correct in that analysis?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So if somebody comes in, alleges a set of facts that may violate a city ordinance, rule, regulation, or department policy, but also violates a criminal law or constitutional law, does that mean we can't go forward with it?
No, you would still review it to determine whether there was a violation of city ordinance, city regulations, the city thing, or the Kansas State bias-based policing statute.
Okay, yeah.
That would be a parallel deal. You just wouldn't be determining whether or not there was a violation of criminal law or a violation of the Constitution.
Okay, I just want to make sure that a complainant does not have to allege that such and such ordinance, rule, regulation, or department policy was violated.
No,
All they have to do is allege facts.
All they have to do is allege facts, yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Sanjay?
Sanjay Mishra, board member. I was trying to simplify this. I was going to say anytime a community member complains, this board should listen to it. That's our role. And irrespective of where it comes from. And then as the complaint rises, then we can take counsel from board.
Right. And is that assumed in that definition? Or does it, Randy?
It is. That's how we read it the whole time. I mean, that's how we anticipated it to work.
Okay.
Marie.
And why don't...
Sanjay, then we'll go to Marie to follow up.
Okay, sorry, Marie. Sorry, Marie. Sanjay Mishra, board member. Then why don't we write it simply? Say anytime there's a complaint from the public, the board will consider it.
Yeah.
Don't get into legalese.
Marie Taylor, board member, I agree with that conceptually, because we're taking in a complaint. We're not making a decision about that complaint. And so if there's a limitation on what we do after we hear the complaint in terms of the review process, we can add that later on in somewhere else in the statute under the section that has rules about what we can review and what the outcome would be, because we still have sections in this ordinance that say we are we are a way for people to directly voice a complaint. And so when they come to us, they're not going to be trying to figure out what rule was violated. They just feel like their rights were violated in some way. So to me, it's like we're getting ahead of ourselves by closing off the intake process. And then we can sort through whether it's like within our jurisdiction. And so having that not be so front loaded just through that definition section, have the definition be broader. And then later in the statute, we have language that says what happens if it says it's a violation of law and not a policy, which is kind of hard to believe, but we'll see.
Okay, Bill, I saw your hand up.
You know, Lori, this is Board Member Graybill. The way I'm reading that subsection E, the definition of complaint, it's not limiting us to hearing anything. And with Randy's clarification of at least what the legal department thinks, seems to me like a complaint that covers anybody that's got a complaint can file one. It's just that if it doesn't meet these things eventually after you hear it, then there anything we can do. But up until that point, every community member is entitled to complain about whatever they want to complain about. So, you know,
Thank you, Bill.
to me, it's a fairly good definition. Kudos to you, Randy.
Sanjay?
So, to Sanjay Mishra, board member, to Bill's point, given that we are having a discussion, suggests that the public will be completely confused. I want to simplify it by saying complaint shall mean any community member's expression of dissatisfaction with law enforcement action. That is the definition of a complaint. Other things are messing it up, as far as I think. That's the definition of complaint. Other things are judgmental issues which are driven into it. We are not there to decide that. We want to open the funnel as much as possible for complaints to come into us.
Thank you, Sanjay. Marie?
Marie Taylor, board member. And so I agree with board member Sanjay, because if you limit it at law enforcement action and then you see the definition of law enforcement action, it does cover, you can add in there that it would cover bias-based policing and anything that was a violation of law. I mean, to me, because that's the test that comes afterwards, not the fact that someone made a complaint. And this even goes beyond what we even had in the original. I don't think we tried to restrict it or to create a test within the definition of complaint originally. So I think that there's a compromise that we can make in terms of how we're defining complaint, and then later on in the ordinance say what this means once we're at the point where we're reviewing the complaint and doing that evidentiary review.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Brandon.
I don't want to speak before any board members, so I do have a statement to make or a thought to offer, but I want to make sure that all the board members have had a chance to.
Okay, any other board members have a comment or clarification? Okay. Brandon?
This is Assistant City Manager Brandon McGuire. So I remember back when the drafting subcommittee first put together their draft and met with myself and with Tony and Randy to go through the draft, and there was some discussion about the scope of complaints that the subcommittee was interested in receiving, and so I think that's where this definition came from, and I recall some of that discussion, including conversation about complaints that are more of kind of addressed through a supervisor and employee. So if an officer, taking a law enforcement action such as a traffic stop and the complainant notifies the department that they felt the officer was rude, and in a comment that they made or in their body language, then that would be something that would most likely, depending on the circumstances, it would be determined whether or not it was a violation of policy or law. And if it's not, then that would be something that would be usually handled as a personnel matter, a conversation or documentation through progressive disciplinary action between the supervisor and the employee. And so I think that's kind of and Tony or Randy, jump in, please, and correct me if I'm wrong about that, or even any of the members of the subcommittee, please do so as well. But I think that was the motivation for how this language was arrived at.
All right, Brandon, this is Chair Salvini. I recognize Board Member Jane.
Jane Gibson, board member. Brandon, your recollection is the same as mine, but what we discussed in that working group and with you and Tony and Randy was we wanted to carve out those complaints that are personnel matters. That's all we did not want to hear, but we do want to hear any community complaints. I am concerned that the way that we've defined complaint here so narrowly circumscribes the kinds of complaints we might hear, and procedurally, who would determine whether the complaint meets this definition? It seems to me the complaints ought to come to us as long as they're not personnel related. We don't have an interest or a need as representatives of the community police interest in the internal workings of the police. But we do have an important interest in the relationship between the police and the community. So I don't think we want to exclude complaints that might come to us that are about that relationship. And this definition seems to open the door for exclusion and also some screening that could happen elsewhere that says we don't get to hear certain complaints from the community. And that doesn't seem appropriate or consistent with what this board has said it wants to do or what it ought to do.
Other comments, feedback?
Assistant City Manager Brandon McGuire. Chair, if I may. I'd maybe like to just check with Randy or Tony and see if the language is revised to end with a period after the word action here in the first sentence. Would that allow, in your opinion, for any discretion to keep sort of personnel matters that aren't a violation of policy or don't meet any of these other criteria, to keep that between a supervisor or at the supervisory level, administrative level? Or would this open the doors to any and every complaint of any nature essentially coming to this board?
This is Tony Wheeler, City Attorney. I'll ask Randy to weigh in also, but I think if we cut it off after the word action, that does broaden it to include any expression of dissatisfaction, which could include those that would be the personnel type items that we've referenced. So, further refinement might be necessary if you're wanting to limit it.
And then another comment is we'd have to have it stated somehow. Yeah, I think I agree with Tony. We would have to at least narrow that and eliminate the personnel matters or things that are personnel complaints or those types of deals specifically.
Yeah, Sanjay, Jane, and then I've got a comment too. Sanjay?
So Sanjay Mishra, board member, I think we have constrained it already with law enforcement action. This doesn't deal with personnel matters. Or is there law enforcement in personnel also? I thought we have constrained it. That anything the public thinks that the police didn't behave in a professional manner, that's a complaint.
Marie Taylor, board member, just refers back to that definition of law enforcement action. To me, that clearly does not touch on any employment personnel issues.
I think that probably does protect it. I think that's, I think I agree with that.
Okay, Jane, did you have a comment too?
Sanjay made my comment very well. Thank you, Sanjay.
Okay, very good. So I think, Marie, does that satisfy then? I guess technically a question I had was, I know we're defining complaint here, and our intent is to engage with the public or have some kind of accessibility point for the community to have a voice. And so when it comes to an issue of personnel or something like that, I mean, I'm thinking, again, going back to a few comments that we've made along the way, where volunteer board, how do we screen to make sure what's appropriate comes our way and what's personnel specific goes to human resources or an independent, complaint body. Again, I don't know the structure that well, but logistically, how would that work? I don't want to deny access, but how does screening occur?
Bill? Board member Bill, go ahead.
This is board member Graybill. I think if if the board gets a complaint and there's any questions about it, or we're trying to figure it out, we shouldn't forget the city's got a legal department we can kind of rely on and depend on to help us out there.
Yeah, I agree.
don't think we have to do it all by ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Jane?
Jane Gibson, board member. I'd like to see 2502E changed to end after the word presented. Complaint shall mean any community member's expression of dissatisfaction with law enforcement action, however presented, period.
You want to take the comma out?
No, the comma can be there.
Okay. Okay, Sanjay?
If that's a motion on the floor, I will second it.
I'm sorry?
If Sanjay Mishra, board member, if Jane made a motion that we edit that to that level, I will second it.
Okay, so
Yes, I'll call that a motion. Thank you,
we'll
Sanjay.
call that a motion. Okay, so the motion, to be clear, is board member Jane Gibson is making the motion that Article 25, 2502E, then shall have a period after presented.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And the motion is seconded then by Sanjay. And all those in favor, Tanya Salvini, yes. Stephanie?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Sanjay?
Yes.
Bill?
Board member Graybill, yay.
Marie?
Board member Marie Taylor, yay.
And Jenny?
Board Member Robinson, yay.
Okay. The motion passes unanimously. That's with 7 votes. Thank you. Okay, moving forward then. Anything else in that section? Jane?
Yes, under 2502G,
Sorry, Madam Chair, this is Brandon McGuire, Assistant Manager. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it looks like we lost Randy Larkin. And if we could, I'd really like to try to get him back on the meeting.
Sure. Okay.
Oh, sorry, he is logging back in now. He's in the waiting room.
Okay.
Internet in Lawrence has been a little bit dicey today, I've noticed.
Yeah.
I apologize. Our internet went down for a second.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Okay, Jane, you were talking about section G here.
Yes, thank you, Board Member Jane Gibson. This is the definition of law enforcement action and I guess it's a question. It says that that law enforcement action would be defined from the least intrusive to the most intrusive, and then it defines those most intrusive are seizures or arrests, and the least intrusive was, no, I don't remember. I can't see it in front of me. Let's see.
Social contacts or just...
Yeah, voluntary or social contacts, it says. Right. And then the most intrusive is seizures or arrests. Well, the way that it's written sounds like that is inclusive of everything in a discrete range. And I'm concerned in the same way that we just discussed under E, that what we've set up is a restriction that we don't really want. If it had said from the least intrusive, for example, to the most intrusive, for example, it would not appear to me to be as restrictive, but since it only gives these examples, it may be setting things out of bounds that we don't want out of bounds. What if, for example, there's physical violence that causes injury or that has the potential to cause injury? That seems to me to be on the other side of seizures or arrests in terms of that end of the continuum.
Under the law, that would be a seizure. There's nothing more intrusive than a seizure.
A seizure is physical violence also?
Yes, that's under the 14th Amendment as an unlawful seizure. If you use excessive force, what they'll prosecute under the 14th Amendment is for unlawful seizure. That's the law. So it goes, it starts at just, hi, how are you on the street? That's a social contact, all the way to being, if there's physical violence, all the way to that. It covers the whole continuum. And there's other things in between, but that's the whole continuum legally of police-citizen contact.
Thank you. That addresses my concern, Randy. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments, questions in that section? Okay, if not, we're going to go ahead and move forward to the purpose of the board, 2503. Bill?
Yes, I have a comment, and I'd like to discuss subsection I.
I'm sorry, subsection what?
I.
I? Okay, we're going to go back up to 2502, section I. We just had a discussion where we want to make this as broad, this board's authority to review as broad as possible. We're dealing with two different things. We are dealing with, number one, things that happen within Lawrence that might be a violation of rules, regulation, ordinances, department policies, or just plain rudeness. But secondly, we're dealing with a specific statute that gives citizens additional rights that we will never have the jurisdiction to afford them, or this board would. And that's 21, it's the racial and other bias-based policing statute. In that statute, there is a specific definition, and that's 224606D. And the specific definition that's used in that statute to trigger the benefits of it is racial or other bias-based policing means the unreasonable use of race, ethnicity, national origin, gender, or religion by law enforcement in deciding to initiate an enforcement action. It seems to me like since we have broadened the definition of complaint, that we should simply keep subsection I so that we still get the benefits of 224606 at SEEK, but take out all the rest of the listed stuff, because now we're looking like we're limiting to those things. So it seems to me like we just
use the statutory language, define racial or other bias-based policing, and let it go at that. And I just don't see any reason to keep, list all these things. First of all, I'm not even sure what houselessness is. I don't know what the economy or your
socioeconomic status.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I don't know how that's defined. I don't know what it is. And I'm sure a lot of people don't. I don't think I'm the only dummy in the world. But anyway, that's my thoughts on that particular section.
Sure, Bill. So Marie and Jenny, let me just really quickly say that the intent, certainly, of putting that in there is that we're covering at least the statute. And I think this was part of the conversation. But we wanted to broaden it to be inclusive in that the bias-based bias then also included those who may have a socioeconomic status that puts them at risk of increased contact with law enforcement, perhaps, or at risk of increased law enforcement contact, or houselessness would be homelessness. So I think the intent, and again, at how I'm recalling it, is to be inclusive of those other issues of bias that certainly also include race. So Marie and then Jenny.
Marie Taylor, board member. So just as a point of clarification, the state statute definition never matched what was in the City of Lawrence ordinance to begin with. So we had already broadened it for the sake of our community. I just wanted to make that. So this is not a deviation. It's an expansion of the inclusivity of what this community feels is important in terms of protecting folks from bias-based policing.
Well, where do we draw? This is Board Member Gray, but where do we draw the line? Is it because somebody's got a sleeve of tattoos? Are we going to list that too? Or they wear nose rings? Or they got red hair? I mean, where does it stop? If Sanjay said he wanted some simplicity, and I agree with him. I think the simpler you make it, the better you make it. We have broadened the definition of a complaint to include anything. So why do we start narrowing that down in this section? And I'm not suggesting that my suggestion says we're deviating from the state statute or deviating from a former ordinance. I'm simply suggesting let's get in line with the state statute on racial or other bias-based policing, and let the rest of it be broad. And this committee can then decide on a case-by-case basis whether there's been some kind of bias.
Okay, Bill, Marie?
Marie Taylor, board member. Where to start? So, yes, Lawrence was already different. And and I don't think I don't believe in slippery slope arguments to decide whether we should expand something when we can go and we can find evidence for a particular group being treated differently. I mean, if there's evidence that people with red hair are being discriminated against, well, then we can look at that, and then we can decide whether we think the ordinance should be amended again. Those things. I mean, if we want to take that slippery slope argument. But I think that we should present this, and we are just an advisory board. And if the city commission doesn't agree with us that this is how we should be defining groups that should have protection, then so be it. But I also think that if we were to take away the specific listing of all of these protected groups, again, we're moving further and further away from calling out what we think which people in our community we think are at risk and are marginalized. And so I would be wholly opposed to that.
Jenny?
Board Member Jenny Robinson, and pardon me, my dog is snoring in the chair next to me here. So as you know, I don't want to repeat this conversation that we've had when we were discussing this section earlier, and I think both Marie and Tanya put it well, and also by adding additional group socioeconomic status and houselessness status, we're raising our collective consciousness to be aware of bias-based policing with those groups of people. So there is power in naming it, and we have the opportunity here as citizens to broaden our scope, broaden our awareness of what puts people more at risk of having bias-based police encounters in our community. So I think it's very important to keep those named in our ordinance.
Okay, Stephanie.
Board Member Stephanie Littleton. I'm going to piggyback on well said Jenny and Marie, everybody beforehand to Bill's concerns here. I just wanted to kind of reiterate and for clarification, just so everybody knows, because I had looked at everybody's, definition of this. The city's was much broader, as Marie brought up, was broader than everybody else's. For consistency's sake and for all the good points that Marie and Jenny have brought up. The reason why we did add the additional, and we've only added the two, which was the houselessness and the socioeconomic status in addition to. I think those are very important to include in this. So I just want everybody to know that the city was broader and we needed to meet that, and we, added on some important aspects as well.
Any other comments or action? Bill?
For the record, I move that subsection I of, section 12502, subsection I, definition of racial or other bias-based policing, be changed to read, racial or other bias-based policing means the unreasonable use of race, ethnicity, national origin, gender, or religion by a law enforcement officer in deciding to initiate an enforcement action. Period.
There's a motion on the floor from Bill. Is there a second? It looks as if there's no second, so the motion dies, Bill. Thank you. Okay, moving forward then to the purpose of the board, which is 12503. Any discussions, thoughts? Anyone from the work group have any?
This board member, Stephanie Littleton, I don't believe we do, Tanya.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move forward then to the specific duties of the board, 12504. And we've got subsection A, the board shall. And I know there was a lot of discussion here at the last meeting about the differences certainly between section A and section B. And there was some attention to thinking about having some education and some screening prior to serving on the board. Have all of those been met in these two subsections?
In this subsection, what we did was we broke 6 down into A and B,
Okay.
and added 7 at your request. So those were the 2 changes. I don't believe we did anything else other than maybe polish language and make it a little smoother.
Okay. Okay, Board Member Bill Grable.
This is Board Member Grable, and this is a question for Randy. Under subsection C, let me get it. Yeah, subsection C, are we ready for that, or am I jumping ahead too far?
That's fine. Any section here is fine.
On the last word in that subsection says policy. Is that intended to mean police department policy?
I think that was in the original. I did, that's not my language. So
Okay.
I assume that's what it means. It's obviously city policy.
Would you agree that it might be somewhat
It
vague?
could very well be, right?
Would there be a problem with changing that language to by duly authorized written police department policies?
So, I'm sorry, I think I missed that a little bit. Bill, what's the intent there?
Okay, subsection C is talking about redactions. And the part that I am referring to says where it allows a redaction where disclosure of the information is prohibited by law or policy. I think the policy is somewhat vague, and I think
Okay.
Randy agrees with me, and I am suggesting that instead of policy, we put the words or duly authorized written police department policy. So we know exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, my question there then would be, does that exist?
Well, if it doesn't exist, then they could not withhold that information from this committee based on policy. I am trying to protect the
Sure.
ability to get as much information as possible.
We could just, we could just stop it at law.
Well, that's fine. Sure.
Okay, is that good with you, Bill?
Yeah, that's fine. Oh, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I see what you mean about the word policy. Yeah. Okay.
And that same issue exists in sub 2.
C2, right? Yeah.
And
Okay.
it also,
And that is from me because I did copy that from C.
Okay, so,
and then in D and G, that also becomes a problem. Or not a problem, but it's the same issue. I've got to find it now in G, but I can wait until we get to those if you want me to.
okay, so, so we'll make this an ongoing motion. I'll talk it through as we go then, from Board Member Bill, and that is to eliminate the word or policy in subsection C, correct?
Correct.
And
C,
then C2 as
Correct.
well.
correct.
Okay, and then we're going forward to subsection D.
I think it's in H.
Marie Taylor, board member, it's also in G.
G,
So why
yeah.
not have-
Yeah,
Marie Taylor, board member, why not have a motion that's to strike all references to policy in language in the provisions that call for redaction based on confidentiality.
I like that. We've got a motion now on the floor from Marie. Okay, and
Second.
that's in 2504 to eliminate the word and the words and policy, where it speaks to redaction in areas of confidentiality in the text. Okay, and the second is where?
So Board Member Grable, that's second.
Bill, okay. At this point, let's go ahead and do a quick vote. All those in favor, yay. Chair Salvini, yay. Stephanie,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Sanjay,
Yes.
Bill,
Board Member Grable, yay.
Marie,
Marie Taylor, board member, yay.
Jenny.
Board Member Robinson, yay.
Okay, it's unanimous, winning by 7 votes, and we're ready to move ahead. Any other items in that section?
Stephanie has some stuff.
Okay, Stephanie. On page 4.
All right, this board member, Stephanie Lipton, under 2504A6. Get myself oriented here. I'm just wondering if we shouldn't we include the specific name here? The report should be racial or other bias-based policing, so it is clear for the community that they understand what that entails.
And that would be under 6A.
Yes.
Okay.
That can be done. Yeah, we can add that.
Yeah, just for clarity, Randy.
Yes,
Appreciate that. I know we know.
right. That will clarify it.
Sure. And then under 6B, if I may, under this, where it says the second report, the only thing that and I'm not sure if this is proper to put in here, depending on where we go with our disclosure, what we're going to be able to report out on the complaints, but wondering if we should not include summary in here as well, a summary of all complaints. I understand it says at a minimum, so I'm open for discussion on that. Jane?
Board Member Jane Gibson. I want to say that I think that's a really good idea. And one main reason is a concern raised in an earlier discussion at a board meeting by Marie, that the board has an obligation to the community to report out, in some sense, the work that we've done. So we have problems of confidentiality. And so that idea that we find a way to be transparent with regard to the community is really disappeared from the ordinance at this point. And Stephanie's suggestion of a summary here, if it's a summary that mirrors the kinds of summaries that the police already produce, they don't violate confidentiality, but it gives us a way to speak to the community to say, this is what we've done. So I would like to see the summary. I want to endorse Stephanie's suggestion here.
And this board member, Stephanie Littleton, I didn't add, but I'll add to that, Jane. You know, as I was thinking of this, I think it would be beneficial to have, obviously, the data readily available to report out to the community for our annual community event. And secondly, for putting together our CPRB annual report for our case review summary. So we'll have that right there in front of us. So whatever that may look like, at the end of the day, I think that's just a thought.
Are there any recommendations or suggestions on where that kind of language or clarification could go in that area? Marie?
Marie Taylor, board member. I don't have a suggestion for where it should go exactly, but I did have some questions about that, maybe more logistical about how we would report out based on language that we'll talk about later. That's further down in the ordinance, talking about the summary. I can envision us including summaries within the annual report, but we may want to do something more quarterly, or attachments to our minutes. Excuse me, not to our minutes, to our agenda that reports out however, whenever kind of schedule we would have. But I'm imagining we wouldn't want it to have to wait to the very end of a year.
I agree.
So, I guess I'm looking for language that gives us the kind of flexibility to decide the pace and a schedule for how we would release that, assuming, you know, we have several. So.
Okay, very good, Marie. Thank you. I see Board Member Gibson and then Mishra.
I just want to, this is Board Member Gibson. I just want to return us to this 6B, which is about what the department reports to us. I fully appreciate what Marie's saying about what we report out. My point about Stephanie's suggestion is that this will give us material, and when we can decide at another part of the ordinance, you know, how we want to report out or when we want to report out. But at this moment, this piece is only about what's reported to us. And Stephanie is suggesting that we have the summary included in this list of things that we would like to be in that report. And that will help us to do these other things that Marie is saying that we need to do, and I agree with. So
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that we include the word summaries under 6B, as Stephanie has suggested.
Board Member Graybill, I second.
Okay, there's been a motion to include the word summary. Motion made by Board Member Jane and seconded by Bill. Discussion. Marie?
Marie Taylor, Board Member, are we talking about summaries produced by the department, or are we talking about summaries that we write ourselves later on in the sec? That's what I'm just a little bit confused about, whose responsibility for summaries.
Stephanie, what did you have in mind? I thought you meant summaries by the department.
By the department, yes.
Else.
Yes.
Yeah, because this is what they report to us.
Okay, that might need to be clearer in here too. Is that?
That's 6B. It says receive from the department 2 annual reports. One is the racial and other bias-based report, and the other is a second report regarding community member complaints, and it sets forth what that complaint should have. And they just want to add a summary of the complaint.
Gotcha. The summary of the, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any more discussion? The motion on the floor then we'll go ready to vote. All those in favor with yay and all those opposed, nay. Tanya, yay. Stephanie?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Sanjay?
Yes.
Bill?
Board Member Graybill, yay.
Marie?
Marie Taylor, Board Member, yay.
Jenny?
Board Member Robinson, yay.
Okay, unanimously passes with 7 votes. Okay, anything else in this? Stephanie, did you have anything else in 2504?
This board member, Stephanie Wilton, yes. At 12, this is just a little, sorry to be nitpicky, Randy and Tony, but at 12, there should be a 12A and then it moves to 12B. So those just need to be just a bit of change there.
Okay.
So 12A, 12B instead of 12B and C.
Yeah, there's a numbering issue with actually that should be in 6. It should be like a capital A and a capital B, and then that B does not come under 12. It goes under the original A. So yeah, there's a lettering issue. So 6 should be like capital A, capital B under 6,
Gotcha.
and then that B under 12 goes with a different section. 12 goes under A.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
I do have, in addition, under 12B, the board shall. So I really just kind of want to talk about what procedure will be followed here. If our board decides an additional statement is needed from the community member, does the city staff make the follow-up contact, or does one of our board members do this? And what, so, because I know we had quite a bit of conversation about due process here and what we can and cannot do and what medium allowed. So going back to my question, would it be city staff? Would it be the PD, or would it be the CPRB board member? Randy or Tony?
It could be either way, however you wanted to do that.
And that's fine. I just want to make sure that we are all clear with how we do that so we don't affect due process. Because I think there was, the concern was going back and like interviewing. We're not wanting to interview. That's not our, our point. It would be just clarification of the statement.
Correct. Before there's any investigation whatsoever, so you're not adding to it. There would, so you could direct staff to make that, to contact and get a more definite statement if you wanted to, or you could have somebody from the board do that if you wanted. So that would be basically up to you guys.
And Randy, that's once again, as long as we are not interviewing, we're just asking for the clarification.
Right. Absolutely. You're not taking any evidence and using that within your decision making. It's just a statement regarding the complaint itself, whether it's in writing, whether it's a tape recording, whatever, and then that would be forwarded to the department for their attachment to the investigation file, not necessarily as evidence, but as a statement regarding the complaint to assist them in doing the investigation. Because sometimes a statement is not complete such that it makes it difficult to investigate. The purpose of this is to get a better statement so that these types of things can be investigated better.
Absolutely. Does anybody have any questions on the board, Sanjay?
So Sanjay Mishra, board member, I would, once the complaint has come to us, I would default towards keeping the complaint within us rather than give it away to the police. So to that extent, that language here, the board may return to open meeting to direct. I think that suffices as far as I'm concerned.
So there's no need for a motion here? Okay.
Marie?
Well,
Marie Taylor, board member. And I think this is there's no motion needed either because it's similar to what already exists is in the ordinance is that any community member could come to us to file it to give us notice of a complaint, and we would have to get that statement from them directly, and we would have to collect that statement to forward it on to the department anyway. So to me that it's not a change in process.
Yeah, this board member, Stephanie Littleton, I actually was not looking for a motion here. I was really wanting to open the discussion and make sure we had the procedure down, just so we all are clear that, we're not interviewing, interrogating, what have you. We're simply trying to clarify and make sure we stay to that and gain the statement clear.
okay, very good, Stephanie Marie, thank you. Okay, anything else in 2504? Stephanie, anyone else? Okay, let's move forward to membership then. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, yeah, membership. 2505, Jane Gibson.
Board Member Jane Gibson, on 2505 membership, it says ex officio members shall serve as a liaison, blah, 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 but shall not participate in reviews, deliberations, or other matters that take place in executive session, and so on. I want to be clear that shall not participate means shall not be in the room. And if that's not the case, then I think we need to specify that this means that this section should disallow the presence in the room of anyone that the CPRB has not invited in there. Otherwise, this should be, if we're to be an independent board, then we need to be able to speak to each other without oversight of anybody who's not on the CPRB. So I just want to be clear. Maybe Randy and Tony can clarify whether or not
that is exactly what I mean by participate. They're not going to participate in executive session.
But that also means they're not present. Is that right?
Yes, that's what participating. Yes. If you want to make it clearer, then we can clarify that.
I think it'd be better to clarify, because does not participate to me doesn't mean they're not in the room. And I think they must not be in the room unless we need them in there. And that's for the CPRB to decide on a case-by-case basis, I would think.
And by invitation, would that be accurate? Okay, I guess that wouldn't matter, right? Okay, so you're suggesting that we take out participate and but shall not be present.
I'd
In
say, but shall
executive-
not be present,
In executive session.
shall not be present or participate in these except by invitation of the CPRB.
Okay. Can that language be added there, Randy, then?
Yes, I have it.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, very good. Since that's going to be more specific language, but it all means the same, do we need a motion?
Maybe you could ask if anybody objects to it, and then we know if we need a motion.
Does anyone object to that the intent has not changed, but it has been clarified to be very specific by eliminating or adding the word shall not be present nor participate in reviews, deliberations, other matters that take place in executive session except by invitation only. Sanjay?
I think for posterity, it's better to motion it.
Perfect.
So people know that we made that change.
Okay, do I hear the motion coming from you then?
It's from Jane. Jane motion, Jane,
Okay.
whatever she said, then I will second it.
Okay. We're violating our rules. Okay, so the motion by Jane Gibson is to do what I just said previously. And I think everyone's clear
Is
with
that-
that.
What's the specific motion?
The specific motion is to, in the last paragraph, the last sentence of 2505, after the comma, but shall not be present nor participate in reviews, deliberations, other matters that take place in executive session, maybe hyphen, only by invitation, hyphen, in accordance with KSA. Okay?
Thank you.
Marie Taylor, board member, how about to say except by.
Except. Okay. The intent is that they can come in by invitation. Okay. So the motion by Board Member Gibson, seconded by Board Member Sanjay. All of those in favor signify with yay. All those opposed, nay. Salvini, yay. Stephanie?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Sanjay?
Yes.
Bill?
Board Member Graybill, yeah.
Marie?
Board member Marie Taylor, yay.
Ginny?
Board Member Robinson, yay.
Okay, and the motion passes unanimously. Very good. Anything else in 2505? Okay, if not, we'll go on to qualifications, 2506. Board Member Taylor.
Marie Taylor, board member. I think last meeting, Jane had suggested that we don't limit the methodology for determining the characteristics by requiring open-ended application questions, that we leave it more to the discretion of the city commission to determine how they want to evaluate the board members' applications. And I'm talking about section B, yeah.
I can just cut out that whole clause if that's what's desired.
Marie Taylor, board
So
member.
moved.
That's what we discussed that last
Yep.
time. I think everyone was okay with that.
Okay, so we're good there. right?
I make a motion.
Bill,
we
Bill
eliminate.
has a,
Bill?
I make a motion, we eliminate subsection B of 1-2506.
2506,
Yes, ma'am.
section B.
Are you trying to eliminate the whole section, Bill?
Yes, I am.
Can you talk about your rationale for eliminating the whole section?
Certainly. If there's a second to the motion so we can discuss it. If there's not, it dies for lack of second.
I'll second. I'd like to hear the discussion.
yes.
Okay, so the motion by Gray Bill is on the table to completely eliminate 2506, section B. It's seconded by Jane Gibson. And discussion.
I have heard time and time again tonight that we are trying to be inclusive. And this subsection or this section is an exclusive section. It has the effect of eliminating many people who could bring valuable life experiences and common sense to this board, but they might not be able to show a record of community involvement or an ability to build working relationships because they don't know how to answer questions. Secondly, it bothers me as to who would be doing the open-ended questions, who authors them, and who grades these little tests. Thirdly, I don't know how you would ever eliminate people with bias. I don't think there's probably 5 people in the earth that don't have some bias. So for us to sit here and say that you can't have bias to be on this board is just ridiculous from my standpoint. And thirdly, if we get somebody, if there is somebody on the board that isn't appropriate or is undesirable somehow, that person can be re-educated by the ongoing training required by 12506C3(5). And if the miscreant insists on retaining the prohibited thoughts, then he or she can be dealt with under 12506E and 12509, both of which allow the mayor and the commission to remove them. So I see no reason for that except to try to become some kind of an elitist organization, and I don't think that's what this was intended for. That's it.
Okay, thank you. More discussion. I see Taylor, Board Member Taylor.
So with Board Member Marie Taylor. So this was presented as an alternative to the laundry list of potential prior criminal history that an individual may have that would exclude them from being on the board. So if the suggestion is that we don't need either of those, and we can just be like a regular board that deals with just conflict of interest, and we're not going to have to make anyone pass any kinds of tests that may or may not be a substitute for some kind of other ability to determine someone's biased or a presumption of bias, then I would be fine. I would support Bill's motion.
That is the intention.
Sanjay?
Board Member Sanjay Mishra. I think, Bill, that's great intent. The only thing I see by putting all this is we are trying to help the commission in how they select members. I am okay with scratching B also. This was setting out, these are some things, qualities we want in a board member.
Desirability.
Yes. But I'm okay with scratching out if that's what everybody thinks.
So Board Member Marie Taylor, as long as it doesn't come back that we have to go back to that list. If we've covered ground and we've like moved the needle forward here in terms of not making presumptions about people and not having to make people prove that they're, you know, basically
they're worthy. Yeah.
Once they're on the board, I'm fine. I think we've mission accomplished, right?
Yeah.
City Attorney Tony Wheeler, I would only point out that the City Commission adopted a resolution governing all of its advisory boards that does require appointees to be members of the Lawrence community. Either they reside here or they have a business here. So that is one of the items that's listed in A. If we strike it from here, I believe that resolution would still apply.
Okay, Bill and then Marie.
This is Board Member Graybill. My motion simply deals with
B.
B.
Right.
It is not,
Right.
it doesn't affect subsection A at all. So if that clarifies that, Tony.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Board Member Taylor wanted to strike A and B.
I don't know what her intention. I didn't read it like that,
No,
but my motion on the floor is to strike B.
I think we cleaned up what Marie was talking about in A, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah. Okay, so any other discussion here? Okay, if not, the motion.
Whoa.
Okay,
I just want to be clear, we are striking the paragraph that introduces the 5 points as well, right, Bill? So we wouldn't have any of that.
The whole subsection, yeah, including
Okay, good.
1 through 5.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, yeah. Okay, call the question, we're ready to vote. All those in favor signify with yay, all those opposed, nay. Chair Salvini, yay. Stephanie?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Sanjay?
Yes.
Bill?
Board Member Graybill, yay.
Marie?
Board Member Marie Taylor, yay.
Jenny?
Board Member Robinson, yay.
Okay, passed unanimously with 7 votes. Very good. I liked your point, by the way, Marie, about moving the needle. That was good. This is a good piece of work that represents those discussions for sure. Okay, anything else in 2506? Stephanie?
Board Member Stephanie Littleton, nope, we don't have anything else.
Okay, very good. Jane, anyone else reading through? Okay, let's move on to good work here. 2507. Confidentiality. Any questions, concerns, edits there? Nope, we're good. All right, breach of privacy. It's pretty good.
Board Member, sorry, I was trying to raise my hand. My only question is on the 3rd line where it says that we will maintain confidentiality of all information. Would that prohibit us from later on using, if it says all information, does that include information that's not confidential? Let's say it's information that we would later want to reduce to a summary.
Yes.
So it's more like just so that if another board member is looking at the confidentiality agreement that they sign and then reads it so strictly that it means all information received, whether it's distributed, all confidential information. Okay.
Well, we can make that change and make that clarification.
And that would be just insert between all and information confidential?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Okay. Again, I don't think that distorts intent or,
No, I think that is the intention. I think
Okay.
that's a good
Very good.
clarification.
As
okay.
Board Member Stephanie Littleton, Marie, you're referring to reporting out, right? Perfect. Good catch there. Thank you.
Okay, moving forward to 2508, breach of privacy. It's pretty rote. Okay, 2509, terms. We're good there. 2510, meetings. Okay, 2511, decisions and procedures of the board. And let's go next to 2512, 2512. Okay, anything else? Marie.
I just want to go back just for a moment to have just a quick consensus on the reporting out under the 2504G to make sure I just understand what everyone's expectations are for reporting out. It says at the conclusion of a review, we shall, during an open meeting, direct a member or members to draft for general release to the public a summary. And so I think that this language is broad enough that we have some flexibility in how we report out, like whether we do it at, monthly, quarterly, or through the annual report. Is that everyone's understanding? And by general release, I'm not thinking like press release. I'm thinking any kind of release of that to the public. Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
That was the intention. We didn't want to put you under a deadline as volunteers, so that whenever it was done and the release of it would be website, or if you did a report, or if you had a website, or just through the city's website, or however it was the best way of releasing it, a summary of the event, so that you guys, if you wanted to do that, that's how it would be done.
Okay, very good. Sanjay?
Sanjay Mishra, board member. Would it be advisable if we said at least on a quarterly basis? So that we do something, means even if it's zero complaints received, zero done. But we put it out there in a quarterly. People don't have to wait a year before they see something from us.
What are your thoughts? Stephanie?
This board member, Stephanie Littleton, I appreciate your thought, but I'd like to have this to be a little bit fluid and kind of continue to roll and leave it flexibility at this point, so we don't lock ourselves in to kind of, as we continue to work through this for the parameters.
I mean, we could say, again, it's a commitment, at least annually, which means we could do quarterly. We could do, twice a year or.
Well, under subsection A8, you're required to make an annual report to the governing body, and it does say from time to time you could do other reports if you wanted to. I think that subsection G has to deal more with this particular case, drawing up a summary of a particular investigation or review, or that the board did, as opposed to a general report involving multiple cases.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a good point here, and that is, how is it that we communicate to the public, or where do we make posts to be accountable to the public, which I think will emerge as we move through community engagement. Okay, Stephanie?
Yeah, I was kind of going the same way you were going there, Tanya. This is Stephanie Hilton, board member. And I was just thinking, we have this awesome, and I do mean this seriously, awesome, community engagement subcommittee. And I think, we can certainly, follow their lead, as they kind of continue to build on that.
Okay, very good then. All right. Any other revisits to this document? And I do want to take time to certainly acknowledge your great work here, Randy and Tony. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It's been very, very helpful. And certainly our commitment to really moving and combing through this. Really appreciate everyone's commitment to this. Jane?
I hate to throw us back, but I said earlier that I thought that the reporting out to the community had disappeared from the ordinance, and I still think that it has. That one that we were just discussing is about any particular case. I don't see anywhere here that it says that we as a board will report out to the community. It says we'll report to the governing body, but it doesn't say. Huh?
Sanjay?
That the governing body that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Randy. Let's hear from Sanjay and then we'll go to Randy.
No, I think Randy was saying the same thing as I was.
Okay.
A8 was where it was, and it says only to the governing body, but it doesn't say how we're going to report out to the public. So if you wanted to add a section specifically for our responsibilities to report out to the public, Jane, we'll have to add a.
I thought that Marie's point was well taken,
Yes.
that we have an obligation to report to the community, and it's not in the ordinance.
Absolutely.
The thought was that the individual cases would be reported under G as you wanted to, a summary of each case. And then that report to the governing body is going to be put on the agenda, and it will be publicized, will be on the city website. And if you want to do it some other way, that would be fine. But that will be public record, and that will be put out to the public by reporting to the governing body.
Okay, I'm all right with that.
Is everyone okay with that, with how it's explained? Do we want to double check and make sure it's truly reflected there? Marie?
Marie Taylor, and also just to remind us that we did put in the community forum. So we do have a way to expanding out our ability to report is more than just doing a written report. We have, I think of it as more of just accountability, other accountability measures that we've put in place as well.
Where is that about the community forum? I had it in my notes and somehow lost track of it.
It's under, Marie Taylor, board member, it's under our responsibilities.
The specific duties of the board?
I
don't see it.
Under number 4, Jane, A4.
Conduct annually, it's on page 2.
I see it, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the question that I had about that was, sorry, I lost my earphones there. That this doesn't actually specify anything about the aim of that community-wide forum. Are we, is this for us to hear what the community has to say? Is this for us to report to the community? Could it be both things? Or is this open enough that we can define it as we go? And does that satisfy our intent?
The other board member, part of your question seems to maybe more directed to the legal staff in terms of like the way that it's drafted. But I think that whether it's broad enough, I think it is, because it doesn't set the subject matter, and that could change over time. What we're hearing back from community members could set the agenda. We don't know what the world will look like in the future, but it does provide some mechanism to at least hold some public meeting that is, maybe outside of the city. So maybe it's at the library, for instance, where we could be hearing the complaints, not so much complaints, but like feedback that wouldn't come through normally through a complaint process, more kind of sort of like generalized concerns. That's a better way of phrasing it. But we don't know what those could be. Or it could be that we don't think that's necessary and we could use it as a method of just describing what the board does.
Education sessions, or like we are going to go out with this ordinance to get feedback, certainly.
Right.
Okay.
This is Randy Larkin, Deputy City Attorney. Nothing in here prohibits disclosing things to the public as the board sees fit. There's no obligation that you make the public things other than after a case, someone's going to be directed to prepare a summary and be prepared and released. And annually, you have to do a report to the governing body, which will be put on an agenda, which will be made to the public. But there's no other requirements. Now, if you want to put limitations or requirements on yourselves, we can add something in. But you are free to do it through forums. You're free to have a website. You're free to do it however you believe would be the best way of communicating with the public.
Okay, recognizing first Jane, then Sanjay, then Stephanie.
I guess in hearing this discussion and reading these 2 points, 4 and 8 together, I think that it's broad enough to allow us to do what we need to do. I wanted to be sure, and I think I think that we do have under 8 that mechanism that will yield the kinds of transparency we're talking about for the community because it'll be public. So I'm comfortable with that. So I'm fine with it as it is.
Okay.
The discussion.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Jane. Sanjay?
I agree with what Board Member Jane said, but I'm wondering if we want to say report to the governing body, which will be public or something, because when I read report to the governing body, I don't think of it as a public. And the city policies are that clean, but why don't we say which is our public report or something to that extent? Make it as explicit as possible.
Well, Sanjay, there is subject to the Open Meetings Act as we are. So there is no reporting to the governing body without the open meeting. But I mean, it wouldn't hurt to put that in there if it made everybody more comfortable.
Randy, what are your thoughts?
We can make it more specific if you want to, just by placing it on the like board member said, these are subject to the open meetings. It will be placed on an agenda. The governing body would receive it. Anybody who wants to retrieve it, it'll be on the website. It'll be attached to the agenda. It can be done that way, but we can make it more specific if that's the board's desire.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie, sorry.
This board member, Stephanie Littleton, I don't really have anything to add. Everybody's made some really good comments back to Randy.
Yeah, I'm really comfortable leaving it as it is.
This board member, Stephanie Littleton, I would add that to Randy's point on 4, I think the broad is best. He's been very clear on this. We're free to have and do as we see fit to most degree anyway. And I think we really want to have that latitude.
I mean, I agree. I don't think we're locked in on number 4 annually, at least one. I mean, I don't, yeah, we're not locked in there, and I'd like to keep it open for sure.
And returning to Bill's earlier point about simplicity,
Yeah.
and the fewer rules around us, the better. I'd say that's right. We should leave 4 alone.
Yeah, agreed.
Stephanie Littleton, so to that point, Jane, going back to the governing body on number 8, keeping it simple, keep it as is.
Yeah, I think so.
Agreed. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. I just needed to hash it through. I can see it now.
Okay, thank you. Whoa, okay. Are we good with the entire document here then? I think we are. Yes. Okay. Do we need to do a final vote on adopting all the modifications that we've made this evening, or were our motions just fine as they were in increments? Bill?
This is Board Member Graybill. I would suggest that we let the staff draft up the motions, the new ordinance with the motions. And
Okay.
we may tonight and take a look at it the next meeting.
Good. Perfect. All right. Thank you, Bill. All right. Thank you all for good work on this. Good works. Good works. Thank you very much again, Randy and Tony. Okay.
Thank you. You guys did a nice job reviewing it.
Marie, go ahead.
Marie Taylor, board member. So our next meeting is when? Because then I guess it would be in December, one of these Thursdays.
The 10th, looks like the 10th.
10th?
Okay.
10th.
And so I guess, is there any desire for the subcommittee to meet in the interim to think through with staff some ideas for promoting this, or do you think this is too premature, or we should?
Are you thinking the community engagement subcommittee? Yeah.
We want to attempt to get some kind of feedback from it on this ordinance outside of just posting through city commission. I wonder.
Sure. Board member Gibson.
I might suggest that that meeting would be really well advised to do it in advance of the 10th. There's no reason to, I think that we're all there and we need a clean document to take to the community, but planning for that event or the distribution to the community to try to get feedback on the document, it seems to me that it would save us a lot of time and drag this out minimally. We seem to be dragging it out maximally. But I appreciate the thoughtfulness. I think it's been really important that we're taking our time. And actually, I should acknowledge that Bill has been the one who's in a working group who has made the point repeatedly that we need to take this slow and be thoughtful and pay real close attention to what we're doing and what it means and what the implications are. So thanks to Bill for that good advice. So, but I still think, that meeting first, and then we'll meet together on the 10th and maybe approve the final document. But to have a plan would be great. Have a plan in place ready to go.
Sure. So the recommendation then of the group is for the community engagement subcommittee to meet before our December 10th meeting to come up with a rough draft of a plan or some ideas that we can discuss at that meeting, in addition to finalizing the document, and then see what our plan is to engage with the community to hear back from them. Mm-hmm. Okay. Sanjay.
And a quick question, Sanjay Mishra, board member. Our document does not need to have a comment period. It would be my thinking that we, in community engagement, that we hear from the community, then we roll up our sleeves again and revisit and see if there's any work that we need to do on the document after we hear from the community, and then do a final comment, perhaps before it goes to the city commission. Is that correct, Brandon? And there'll be an opportunity for community comment at the city commission meeting as well.
This is city.
So would we be, sure, and I guess the specific question is, are we required to have a public comment time during one of our meeting, our scheduled meeting, in addition to doing a community outreach plan to hear back from community members?
Assistant City Manager Brandon McGuire. Tanya, you're asking for my guidance on that?
Well, I guess I don't know if we're required to do that. Is that really the question there?
Assistant City Manager Brandon McGuire. If that's the question, I would just go back to the City Commission's feedback to the board, and I forget the meeting, but it was quite some time ago now, where they encouraged the board to engage city staff, engage the public, and engage with the consultant conducting the police study. There are no requirements of how the board proceeds, but that was the City Commission's feedback. I know that city staff has assisted with drafting, but we have not provided any analysis of the ordinance, aside from the legal test that Tony's staff did. And then at this point, aside from public comment in your meetings, we have not facilitated a public input process for this ordinance. So we'd really look to the board to for guidance on how you would like us to support you with any or all of that.
Okay, Sanjay.
So, Sanjay Mishra, board member. So one of the easy ones I see is to send this copy to the consultant and say, seek your feedback. Right, Brandon? That's what one of the things is in there.
Assistant City Manager Brandon McGuire, we could certainly make that happen, but I guess we would look to maybe some guidance on the timeline that you would want the consultant's feedback. Right now, the status of their study is that they are in the early phases. The police department staff is working on a big data and document request and fulfilling that. And so I would think that the consultant would want to spend some time in the community, maybe have meetings with you, have meetings with the city commissioners, and start their public engagement process, and probably get well into that process before they would want to start providing their opinions on this or any other matters.
Sanjay?
Sanjay Mishra, board member. Then I don't think our timeline will permit that consultants input into this. What we can do is when they are finishing, when they are engaging with us, we can share it with them. And if they suggest any changes, we can think about it. At this point, I think we have a nearly finished document and we want to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Marie Taylor, board member. So just off the top of my head, I'm thinking that what we'll need from staff is a document that summarizes the types of changes, and then something that's digestible for the community. And then we can take the ordinance plus this summary of how it's changed. That's very digestible, so they can kind of understand. And then with those two pieces, we'll have we can build a plan for getting feedback and whatever tools that the city allows. But so I guess for the subcommittee, we'll also need to have some of the PR staff available, and perhaps also Randy, if he involved in that next meeting with the subcommittee.
Sure, and I think the point there is that we are going to have to do some pre-education to walk folks through in order to elicit that kind of feedback from the community and engage. So does it sound good, Randy?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, perfect. All right, and Sanjay, your comments are acknowledged as well. I think in terms of time, I think we need to keep moving forward, and it'll be helpful to get some feedback from them. That might be helpful for the next round with this document, maybe down the road. But I think the work that everyone's done has increased its sustainability with reflecting the intent, and so I think that's really good. Okay, any other comments or questions?
Board member.
Stephanie.
Board member Stephanie Littleton, just a quick comment because I see everybody's starting to really fade. It's been a long day, but I just wanted to once again just say, I know I say this from all of our board that we so appreciate the city legal staff and all that you're doing. I mean, I know you're going back to the board again with some more, and this has been a lot. It's been pretty tedious, but truly appreciate the partnership. So thank you so much.
Indeed.
This is Assistant City Manager Brandon McGuire. I just want to acknowledge that there has not been a meeting scheduled for December 10th. In fact, this was the last meeting that the board had scheduled. So we will, just as quickly as possible tomorrow, we will update the board's webpage and the calendar and advertise that, so that information is out there publicly. But I know that some folks do pay attention to that calendar, and so I just wanted to make that statement on the record that it's not on there now because we're taking the direction from the board this evening to calendar it for December 10th. We'll get all that information out there just as soon as possible.
Okay, very good, Brandon. Thank you. Okay, do I hear a motion?
I move we adjourn.
Thank you, Bill. The motion by Bill to adjourn. Stephanie?
I second that motion. Board Member Stephanie
Oh,
Middleton.
any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor with yay? I'm sorry, Marie?
Marie Taylor, board member. Did we complete our agenda? Was there other?
Anything else? Yeah.
I thought there was.
We are done.
Legislative something?
I don't see it. My second and last agenda item is cleaning up the ordinance.
Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's okay. All right. Very good. All right. All those in favor with a yay. Salvini, yay. Stephanie.
Yay.
Jane.
Yes.
Sanjay.
Yes.
Bill.
Board member Gray Bill, yay.
Marie.
Marie Taylor, board member, yay.
Jennifer.
Yay.
Okay, it's unanimously voted that we disengage at this time. So who's got the chocolate?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you
Good
all.
night.